There have been very few complaints the way it is. People go, they use the bathroom that they feel is appropriate.
So if Caitlyn Jenner were to walk into Trump Tower and want to use the bathroom, you would be fine with her using any bathroom she chooses?
That is correct. A radical Islamic terrorist targeted the nightclub, not only because he wanted to kill Americans, but in order to execute gay and lesbian citizens because of their sexual orientation. It's a strike at the heart and soul of who we are as a nation. A friend of mine called up, he said, you know, you don't get enough credit because in Palm Beach, you opened a club that nobody would do, and it's open to everybody. It's open to everybody. And a member of the club, great guy, who's gay, wrote this magnificent letter saying what Donald Trump did, nobody else would do. I will do everything in my power to protect our LGBTQ citizens from the violence and oppression of a hateful foreign ideology. Believe me.
Do you support marriage equality?
It's irrelevant because it was already settled. It's law. It was settled in the Supreme Court. I mean, it's done.
So even if you appoint a judge that...
It's done. You have, these cases have gone to the Supreme Court. They've been settled. And I think I'm fine with that.
He's literally holding the flag upside down because that's the way the words are written on it. You guys need common sense.
He is true. If a country's prosperous and if its borders are secure, that goes a long way to making it united.
Well, insecure borders, as we know from Europe as well, we learnt in our own country many years ago, insecure borders really anger people. It's not that they're against immigration, they're against illegal immigration and people breaking the rules coming into the country and then demanding support from taxpayers in the country. So he gets a lot of support for that as well. But, I mean, that's all been part of the progressive agenda, that you should allow people willy-nilly to come into the country regardless of who they are, and to stop them is inhumane and unfair and whatever. Well, I mean, this is all part of the huge pushback against that as well. And as for foreign policy, Biden and Obama, you know, before Trump's first term, they were very weak in the way they handled both Russia and Iran. And Biden made the catastrophic decision to withdraw, as he did, from Afghanistan. That sent out a terrible message about American and Western weakness, which has been exploited by the Iranians, by Putin and by Xi Jinping.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to some strength in foreign policy. I think the world will be a much safer place. Just briefly back to the UK and Kemi Badenoch, the new leader of the British Conservative Party. She calls out this argument on immigration. She says you can oppose illegal immigration and not be a racist, and it carries a lot of weight because she's a black woman.
Yes, right. She can say things that white people, white people can say, but they will be hammered and accused of being racist. She has a wonderful line. I really admire her line, that I look to the day when people will judge my colour, the colour of my skin, in the same way as they judge the colour of someone's eyes or the colour of someone's hair. She is the fantastic antidote to critical race theory, and she's got off to a brilliant start in that role.
Great stuff. Looking forward to...
It was said, all women must vote for Kamala. Many voters were exempt if they couldn't define what a woman is.
His name was General Kane. I don't even know. Maybe he's not even on my side. Who the hell knows with these generals? You know, when I get through with this guy, Milley, I mean, how about Milley? Remember? Remember when I walked to the church, proudly walked to the church, that the protesters, they tried to burn it down, but I walked to the church, protesters out there, and Millie was walking with me. And the next day, the radical left media starts calling, you shouldn't have walked, you shouldn't have walked. Instead of saying, I'm proud to walk with my president, not because it's me, because of the office. Instead of saying that, he wanted to apologize for walking with the president of the United States. And I said, this guy doesn't have what it takes. And you're seeing that now, because the worst decisions I've ever seen. That's, again, why I put the patent. I just remembered it as I was coming over here. I said, get that clip quickly. The people of Alabama understand that clip. Do you think that... Let me ask you, do you think that General Patton was woke? I don't think so. What do you think, Mike? Mike, was he woke? I don't think so. I don't think he was too woke. He was the exact opposite. You know what woke means? It means you're a loser. Everything woke. Everything woke. It's true. Everything woke turns to shit, okay? It's true. It's true. Look at what's happening.
That's why this guy is great. This is how 95% of people feel.
We'll take a couple of quick questions, and then I'll shake a few hands. Question, ma'am, go ahead. Hello.
Hi, welcome, President Trump.
Thank you.
Okay, so you kind of already answered my question a little bit, but my question was, when you become president again, what would the first thing you'll do to fix our current school system and even our current military that's only focusing on teaching woke gender ideology over learning the basics of life and history and protecting us?
So a good question, though. Some of it partially answered, but not all. With the military, we're ending woke immediately. You know, I ended woke, totally. And then they, in their first week, they reestablished it. It's crazy. They pay instructors hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. It literally, I mean, literally, they want our military to be woke. And it's just not going to happen. You read in Hawaii where they had the horrible fire where they have people going there. And before they bring them on board, they have to study woke for a week. Can you believe this? In other words, everyone's wanting to get back to their home, finding the bodies. It was such a tragedy. You don't read about it too much anymore, but hell is going on over there. And they want to give them classes in essentially wokeness. Can you believe? So, you know, you've seen it. Well, we'll end that very quickly. We will, with the school, I think the schools are very important. We're going to bring our education department back. Now, if you look at our education, we pay more per pupil than any country in the world by 3 times. And yet we're at the bottom of the list. We have a bad, very bad. If a place like Iowa, as an example, if you could run your own and we give you just a percentage of the money, because you wouldn't need nearly the money that they waste in Washington. Number one, you love your students, you want your students, you know your students. The parents will be involved. That's the other thing. We're going to let the parents, because some of these school boards have become tyrannical. They've been horrible. But we're going to bring that back, and that's going to answer your question, because I think that we can have one of the best school systems in the world. Right now we have one of the worst. They basically rate 40 countries, and we're always at close.
It's hard to imagine a more stupid or more dangerous way of making decisions than by putting those decisions into the hands of people who pay no price for being wrong. Know-it-alls in the school system do not lose 1 dime or 1 hour's sleep if their bright ideas turn out to be all wrong, or even disastrous, for the child.
It's gone sick. And I don't like the term woke, because I hear woke, woke, woke. You know, it's like just a term that half the people can't even define it. They don't know what it is.
Later.
A lot of things going on with our military, with the woke and all this nonsense. They're not learning to fight and protect us from some very bad people. They want to go woke. They want to go woke. That's all they talk about now. I see letters that are being sent. It's horrible.
That was 10 hours after the first comment.
Very coherent.
Being pushed on our children is an act of child abuse. Very simple. Here's my plan to stop the chemical, physical, and emotional mutilation of our youth. On day 1, I will revoke Joe Biden's cruel policies on so-called gender-affirming care. Ridiculous. A process that includes giving kids puberty blockers, mutating their physical appearance, and ultimately performing surgery on minor children. Can you believe this? I will sign a new executive order instructing every federal agency to cease all programs that promote the concept of sex and gender transition at any age. I will then ask Congress to permanently stop federal taxpayer dollars from being used to promote or pay for these procedures and pass a law prohibiting child sexual mutilation in all 50 states. It'll go very quickly. I will declare that any hospital or healthcare provider that participates in the chemical or physical mutilation of minor youth will no longer meet federal health and safety standards for Medicaid and Medicare and will be terminated from the program immediately. Furthermore, I will support the creation of a private right of action for victims to sue doctors who have unforgivably performed these procedures on minor children. The Department of Justice will investigate Big Pharma and the big hospital networks to determine whether they have deliberately covered up horrific long-term side effects of sex transitions in order to get rich at the expense of vulnerable patients, in this case, very vulnerable. We will also investigate whether Big Pharma or others have illegally marketed hormones and puberty blockers, which are in no way licensed or approved for this use. My Department of Education will inform states and school districts that if any teacher or school official suggests to a child that they could be trapped in the wrong body, they will be faced with severe consequences, including potential civil rights violations for sex discrimination and the elimination of federal funding. As part of our new credentialing body for teachers, we will promote positive education about the nuclear family, the roles of mothers and fathers, and celebrating rather than erasing the things that make men and women different and unique. I will ask Congress to pass a bill establishing that the only genders recognized by the United States government are male and female, and they are assigned at birth. The bill will also make clear that Title IX prohibits men from participating in women's sports, and we will protect the rights of parents from being forced to allow their minor child to assume a gender which is new and an identity without the parent's consent. The identity will not be new, and it will not be without parental consent. No serious country should be telling its children that they were born with the wrong gender, a concept that was never heard of in all of human history. Nobody's ever heard of this, what's happening today. It was all when the radical left invented it.
We are in a time in history where someone has to actually fight against this type of craziness.
Go ahead. Sure. She's shocked that I picked her. No. She's like in a state of shock.
I'm not thinking, Mr.
That's
President.
okay. I know you're not thinking. You never do.
I'm sorry?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
In a tweet this weekend, Mr. President, you said that it's incorrect to say you're limiting the scope of the FBI investigation.
What does that have to do with trade? I don't mind answering the question, but, you know, I'd like to do the trade
It has
questions,
to do with the other
right?
headline in the news, which is the Kavanaugh
I know,
nomination.
but how about talking about trade, and then we'll get to that.
Trump answers these reporters like I've been wanting someone to answer them for years.
Great to speak with you, Alexander. We saw this coming. It's still just momentous to actually see it unfold in real time. What's your take on Donald Trump's triumph?
Well, I remember a week ago on this program we gave you a preview that Trump would win, and there he did. I think this is the beginning of a huge global fight back by ordinary people against the progressive agenda. You're seeing it in other countries as well, but most relevantly in America. Against extreme climate change policies which are pushing up energy prices and contributing to inflation and leading to manufacturing leaving the country. Critical race theory, the country being salami sliced up into different racial groups and set against each other, trashing the history of the country and its traditions of patriotism. There's a huge reaction to all of that now that progressive agenda, and you've seen it in Trump's election, and it's beginning in the UK with the election of Kemi Badenoch as the leader of the Conservative Party. People have just had enough, and that's why Trump won.
I want to come back to the UK in a moment, but let's focus on Trump again for a moment. Of course, it's hard to assess his first term as president because so much of it involved COVID, but there was a lot of economic change. There was a lot of strength in foreign policy. There was successful attempts to secure the border. And now he says more success will bring the country together. Have a look.
It's time to put the divisions of the past 4 years behind us. It's time to unite. And we're going to try, we have to try, and it's going to happen. Success.
We are zeroing in on things that might change under a new Trump administration. The former president has promised to reinstate a ban on military service for transgender people and to block transition-related care for minors nationwide.
But what does this anti-LGBTQ rhetoric practically mean for a second Trump term? Joining us now, NBC News correspondent Stephen Romo. So, Stephen, what are you hearing from voters about a second Trump presidency?
Yeah, Kate and Clay, there's a lot of fear in many of the LGBTQ plus community, particularly about trans rights when it comes to the former president. Advocacy groups like the Human Rights Campaign posting today, "We are brokenhearted, but we are not broken," along with a list of different resources, including mental health resources for the community. The Trevor Project posting something very similar toward trans young people, saying, "Your life matters," a nod to LGBTQ plus young people who are more than 4 times likely to commit suicide than their peers. There's a real sense that the progress that's been made over the past few years could be rolled back. Here's more of what some voters had to say.
I have a lot of friends and family that are, women, LGBTQ, so I fear for them. I think our country just got a lot less safe for them. And so, I don't know. Not the country I thought it was.
Also hearing from voters bringing up a Project 2025, which you'll remember promotes traditional American family. Trump has distanced himself from that, though there are many links between that effort and his campaign. Guys.
Yeah, Stephen, President-elect Trump's campaign ran ads with messaging around transgender issues. There's one that it was all over the place with the tagline, "Harris is for they, them." I wonder whether people in the LGBTQ community and others that you're talking to worry that things are really going to change under just tonally under a new Trump administration.
Certainly, and one thing that I'm hearing from voters is the fall of Roe versus Wade. They bring that up. The Obergefell decision, which happened in 2015, which legalized gay marriage, also based on the right to privacy, which is how Roe versus Wade ended up falling. They're bringing that up as something that they're seeing, again, with Project 2025, mentioning a traditional American value, something that many people are talking about. And President Trump himself mentioning the boys and girls sports. He's said that many times, talked about parents sending their kids to school, falsely claiming that they come home having received gender-affirming care, something that has not happened, but of course causing a lot of alarm and causing a lot of focus on this community, which is already in a lot of fear for how things are going to impact moving forward. One thing of hope I have heard from some of these voters is knowing that the president can't do anything on their own, that there are legislators that people plan to...
He's just going to protect the kids. And some of you can't handle that. They will have protection now.
With Biden barely there on good days and Kamala on the trail, who the heck is running the White House? And how dangerous is an America run by unelected technocrats? Which begs the question, who's the real threat to democracy?
I'm the opposite of a threat to democracy. They're a threat to democracy. I mean, look at what they just did. They just took over the presidency from a This was a coup. Biden is a very angry man right now. You know that. They took the presidency away. His wife didn't want it to happen. They took the presidency away like he was a child.
Who's making the decisions right now in the White House, do you think?
A group of people that are fascists, communists, Marxists. They circle the beautiful Resolute desk in the Oval Office, like in the Justice Department. I mean, I always felt that Merrick Garland, I had respect for him. You know, there were some people that thought I should appoint him. I really gave it serious thought.
He had a good reputation.
But in the end, no, he did. I had a lot of respect for him. I'm so surprised that he's doing it.
But you're saying Biden isn't making any of the big decisions.
I don't think so, no. I don't think he knows he's alive.
Kamala Harris in her Twitter bio, which I never noticed until this morning, states her pronouns as she/her. What are your pronouns?
I don't want pronouns. I don't want pronouns. I saw
So
that.
you're fluid? What is that?
Nobody even knows what that means. Ask her to describe exactly what that means.
Well, what is that? Why are people
Nobody
doing
knows.
That? Well, what is that?
Because they're going crazy, all right? We have to bring our country back to sanity. So I say this about the Republican Party. It's a party now based on common sense, okay? We're conservative, I don't know. Conservative, we're everything. But we're based on common sense. We want borders, we want low taxes, we want good education, we want to be able to buy a house, we want the American dream for our children.
We don't want pronouns. We want sanity.
But for voting, they don't want you to have voter ID. We have a woke military that can't fight or win, as proven in Afghanistan. The way they were taken out was such a disgrace. And the people in the military are so great, but the leadership at top is just a disgrace. That should have never, ever happened. And we had it way down in Afghanistan. Everyone up here knows about it, and we were doing great. They respected us. Abdul, the head of the Taliban, I called him. And I said, Abdul, you're killing a lot of our people. Don't do it, Abdul. He was killing them, shooting them in the Obama administration. People, I got criticized for that call. I said, Abdul, don't do it, Abdul. Yes, Your Excellency, I understand. I said, if you do it, we are going to hit you harder than anybody has ever been hit in the history of our country. And that's very hard because we do have a great military. A lot of people don't even realize it because of the way we run it. But we have great people. We have great generals, not the television generals. But I said, Abdul, don't do it. He said, but why do you send me a picture of my home? Why do you send me a picture of my house? Please tell me. I say, Abdul, that you're going to have to figure out for yourself. It's a lovely house. And for 18 months, we had nobody, you know that, Lindsay, we had nobody killed or shot, not one soldier. In fact, Biden even making a speech during that period, he said, well, say what you want, for 18 months, nobody was killed. No soldier, not one, not injured, not shot at in Afghanistan. And then they start screaming at him, don't say that. You're not supposed to say that because that's good for the Republicans, but that's true. We didn't lose one soldier in 18 months. We didn't have one soldier shot at in 18 months. And then they had the catastrophe of that pullout, that horrible pullout. The way they did it was so embarrassing to I believe it was the lowest day in the history of our country. I really believe that. And I think that's one of the things that started with Russia. Russia looked at that. They saw that incompetence, and they said, wow, this is a great time to go in. And by the way, that would have never happened. We should have...
Imagine signing an oath to protect American citizens and the Constitution, then being told to stand down and let the invasion happen.
On the campaign trail, Trump has been talking about what he plans to do if elected in November. And that includes rolling back the rights of millions of LGBTQ people. It's part of a wider playbook to undo many modern civil rights advances for minority groups. White House correspondent Laura Barron-Lopez has been following this, and she joins us now. Hi.
Hi.
So on LGBTQ rights, what has Trump said he wants to do?
Since launching his campaign, former President Donald Trump has targeted LGBTQ people, transgender people. He's attacked gender-affirming care for minors, as well as their ability to play in sports. And he says that he plans quick action if elected.
On day one, I will sign a new executive order to cut federal funding for any school pushing critical race theory, transgender insanity, and other inappropriate racial, sexual, or political content onto our children.
That promise you just heard, William, has become a staple of former President Donald Trump's campaign rallies.
How much of that, though, is just campaign rally rhetoric? I mean, we know that that kind of language excites a certain slice of his base. How much of that is just him talking versus what he actually plans to do?
Well, it's not just campaign rhetoric, and his allies have drafted a sweeping document titled Project 2025. It's led by the conservative think tank, the Heritage Foundation, and it details a blueprint for a second term for Trump. specifically on restricting LGBTQ rights. What that details is reinstating a transgender military ban, limiting LGBTQ workplace discrimination protections. Currently under the law, sexual orientation and gender identity are protected. It would rescind healthcare protections for transgender people and urge Congress to define gender as male and female fixed at birth. Trump has repeatedly said also, William, that he would ban gender-affirming.
He has a plan for everything to go.
That this plan also is trying to stop any and all acknowledgement of and acceptance of gender identity and LGBTQ people, period. And so throughout this blueprint, there's some pretty striking language where saying that government officials should only recognize marriage as between a man and a woman, and that a man and a woman are the ideal natural family structure. Also, in addition to that, William, Trump has outlined a number of policies that essentially help minority groups and that they would be on the chopping block. So when it comes to Project 2025 cuts to diversity, what the plan would do is delete diversity, equity, and inclusion from every piece of legislation, remove diversity, equity, and inclusion offices from federal agencies, curtail the teaching of race and racism, and urge Congress to ban federal funds for critical race theory training. Essentially, William, Trump has vowed on the campaign trail to terminate all DEI programs.
Are all of those things that you listed, are those within the purview of the president? Can he legally just go ahead and do those things?
So technically, this relies on Trump, if he is reelected, enacting a legal concept known as the unitary executive theory. And that's outlined in Project 2025. And it essentially suggests that Trump could basically just work around or ignore congressional oversight. And we spoke to Kim Whaley. She's a law professor at the University of Baltimore, about Trump's ability to carry out Project 2025.
With Donald Trump, the question isn't so much what the law authorizes, it's that if he has an army of employees that are willing to be loyal to whatever he wants and they implement what he directs, then the question is there going to be pushback through Congress, through the courts, through the voters? If there's no accountability and
now, not only in terms of job, but in terms of crime. People are being killed by these migrants coming in from jails, prisons, and gangs from South America and from all over the world. They're coming from all over the world. The world is dumping their prisoners and their criminals into the United States. We're like a dumping ground.
Your legacy, in one or two lines. 5 years from now, assuming you've been president for 4 years, you've finished your second term, what do you want your legacy to be for America?
That I loved our country, and that I was able to straighten it out, because our country's going bad. We're a failed nation. We're a failing and a failed nation. We're laughed at all over the world. When I was president, we weren't laughed at. President Xi was not laughing at me. He wasn't giving us lectures like they did in Alaska in the early weeks of the Biden administration. I've never seen anything. They would never do that. Mexico wouldn't say we want $2 billion just to talk. Mexico gave us everything. Remain in Mexico policy. Nobody could come in. They had to remain in Mexico. Mexico gave us everything. We had a strong border. We had the strongest border in the history of our country. Listen, when I made the right turn, you know why? Because I put up a chart of the lowest immigration in recorded history. That chart saved my life.
I hope the guy who made that chart got a raise.
Well, it was actually made by Border Patrol.
Are you having any fun out there? Like, I know this is like work, but you're 78, you could be doing anything. Are you having fun post-assassination attempt?
I feel, number one, just because you said 78 I am, but I feel stronger. I feel just as good as I did 40 years ago. I feel the same. I actually feel I'm sharper, because if I'm not, I'm in trouble, okay? I feel I'm sort of sharper. Somebody said it to me that said, you know, I think you're sharper now than you were 20 years ago. And maybe doing, you know, all these things, everything that's happening. I'm having fun in a strange way, because I'm making a lot of progress. I think we're going to win, and I'm going to make America great again. And that's far more important to whether or not I'm happy. That will make me happy.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling.
Not knowing what a woman is weird. Not promoting family values.
Ability and pushback then the answer to your question is yes. Then these things can happen because there's nothing to stop him.
As you heard Professor Wheely say there, this plan really relies on loyalists being installed across the board in government for him to be able to carry this out.
I mean, as you and others have reported, I mean, these LGBTQ changes, proposed changes, are pretty sweeping, but Project 2025 has a lot of other things. Who is it? You mentioned its heritage, but who else is behind this project?
So this draft blueprint playbook was created by roughly 100 right-wing organizations led by the Heritage Foundation. And a number of these authors are actually people that worked in Trump's administration when he was president, including Peter Navarro, a former White House official, Roger Severino of the Health and Human Services Department, and Ken Cuccinelli at the Homeland Security Department. They have all contributed to drafting this. They're contenders for a future cabinet if Trump were to win re-election. This is a 180-day manual of sorts, William, that outlines the ability for former President Trump to consolidate power under the presidency. And I spoke to Professor Thomas Zimmer at Georgetown, who studies authoritarian regimes, and he explained that Trump wasn't necessarily able to institute this in 2017 when he first took office because he didn't have the amount of loyalists that he plans on having across the board. And with these new loyalists, Zimmer said, he can advance a white Christian evangelical ideal of American society.
This is not going to be Trump presidency part 2, just more of the same. This is qualitatively something very, very different. It is opposed to egalitarian democracy because it fundamentally does not agree that all people are equal or deserve to be treated as equal citizens. Only those who belong to the quote-unquote true people, to real America, deserve that. And so everyone else needs to either be purged from the nation or at the very least accept their sort of lesser place in society.
Professor Zimmer added that that type of purging he's talking about takes roots in the McCarthyism of the early 1950s, where they essentially tried to sweep away anyone across American society that would deviate from perceived norms.
Laura Barone-Lopez, such important reporting. Thank you very much.
It's not even about the potential laws. It's also about the fact that it's going to be just fine to be harassed and possibly harmed when we're out and about. Probably encouraged, too.
As part of our new credentialing body for teachers, we will promote positive education about the nuclear family, the roles of mothers and fathers, and celebrating rather than erasing the things that make men and women different and unique. I will ask Congress to pass a bill establishing that the only genders recognized by the United States government are male and female, and they are assigned at birth. The bill will also make clear that Title IX prohibits men from participating in women's sports, and we will protect the rights of parents from being forced to allow their minor child to assume a gender which is new and an identity without the parent's consent. The identity will not be new, and it will not be without parental consent. No serious country should be telling its children that they were born with the wrong gender, a concept that was never heard of in all of human history. Nobody's ever heard of this, what's happening today. It was all when
I will try to pass bill that says only genders recognized by US Gov to male and female. Is it a good thing or bad one?
I heard about it 4 years ago, but you don't hear about it anymore. I want the American dream as a goal for our children. They want to do something. You don't hear that anymore with all of this nonsense going on. We are a party based on common sense.
A Time magazine story over the weekend says that they're going to use the phrase just plain weird as their new label for Trump. I thought that was Austin's motto, but just plain weird.
Look, what they do is they take sound bites. Russia, Russia, Russia. He's a paid associate of Putin. These people are crazy, okay? Do you know, that lasted 2.5 years, total exoneration. They went through millions of phone calls. They didn't have one call to Russia. The whole thing was a con job, and everything about them. Look at Biden. He said he'll challenge me to golf. I'm a very good golfer. He's a terrible golfer. This guy can't hit a ball 30 yards. You saw those men downstairs, those policemen. They're screaming at me, hit a shot, hit
Big
a shot.
police, event
and I hit
here.
a nice 7-iron right next to the pin. Biden wouldn't do that. He couldn't hit the ball 15 yards.
I mean, what is this, just plain weird?
Listen,
American families?
the
are weird.
whole thing is a con job. Just plain weird. You know who's plain weird? She's plain weird. She's a weird person. Look at her past. Look at what she does. And look at what she used to say about herself, and I won't get into it, what she used to say and who she was compared to what she said starting at about 2016. She became a totally different person, only for political reasons.
Black women, Kamala Harris believes she can mobilize them. She is mobilizing activists quite well, I think, across the country. What do you say to them tonight about how life will improve for them under a second Trump administration?
If you have
Need some common sense back in the White House.
Thank you very much. Where's gays for Trump? You don't look good.
You know good. He said you don't look good.
We did great with the gay pop. And what good does it do when we're clean, but China's not, and Russia's not, and India's not? Joe Biden and the Democrats are even pushing policies that would destroy women's sports. A lot of new records are being broken in women's sports. Hate to say that, ladies, but got a lot of new records. They're being shattered. You know, for years, the weightlifting, every ounce is like a big deal for many years. All of a sudden, somebody comes along and beats it by 100 pounds. Boom, boom. Now, young girls and women are incensed that they are now being forced to compete against those who are biological males. It's not good for women. It's not good for women's sports, which worked so long and so hard to get to where they are. The task for our movement their party is based.
Former President Donald Trump criticized the participation of transgender women athletes in female sports.
Rowan Dean, great to see you again. Trump's win, how important do you think it is?
Oh, it's hugely important, Andrew. And I'll just correct you. I actually predicted a landslide win for Trump 3 years ago, and I haven't deviated from that over the last 3 years. I am alone amongst all the commentators and journalists in the mainstream media of Australia to have picked that and to have called it a landslide. And I'm delighted that that is what has occurred, but it does not surprise me. And the reason it does not surprise me is for the very reason you have mentioned. Much like the Voice campaign here last year, this was a direct referendum on wokeness, on the entire vile, nasty, spiteful, sanctimonious, supercilious ideology known as wokeness, which includes everything from climate change to transgenderism to open borders the list goes on and on. The people have rebelled in the States against it. They rebelled against it here in Australia. Common sense, everyday Americans. I put my faith in the American people. I was asked by a friend of mine the other evening, are you still sure that Donald Trump will win in a landslide? And I said, absolutely 100%. Then she said, why? And I said, because I put my faith in the intelligence of the American people, much as I put my faith in the intelligence of the Australian people during The Voice. Andrew, this is the end of wokeness. Albanese will be gone at the next election. Here's another prediction I'll offer you for free. Peter Dutton must now seize the moment and realise that the Liberals can and will win the next election if they take the Donald Trump playbook and tackle the cultural issues, because it's those issues. Promise a great economy, promise to get rid of all the woke nonsense, promise to stop wasting money on renewables, and promise that girls won't go into a changing room and be confronted by some bloke. That's what Donald Trump...
Well, if Donald Trump was hoping to build bridges with the National Association of Black Journalists, it backfired spectacularly. He began by labelling one of the journalists conducting the Q&A as nasty and hostile, but there were audible gasps from the audience when he began to question the racial identity of his opponent in the election, Vice President Kamala Harris. Now, Kamala Harris hopes to become the first female president of the United States. She describes herself as African American and South Asian Indian American, but Donald Trump appeared to suggest that at some point she had changed how she identifies, using the rather odd phrase, she happened to turn black. Let's listen to what he said.
I've known her a long time indirectly, not directly very much, and she was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she black?
She has always
But you know
identified
what?
as a black woman.
I
She went to a
respect
historically
either
black
one.
college.
I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't.
Sources close to Kamala Harris's campaign described the remarks as unhinged and said they were proof Donald Trump couldn't unite America and an absolute disaster for him. The White House instantly condemned them as impulsive and insulting and said it was important to remember that Kamala Harris is Vice President of the United States and as such is entitled to respect. Now, during that combative Q&A session, Donald Trump also faced questions about his choice of running mate, J.D. Vance, who's been in the news for all the wrong reasons, and rather oddly said that the choice of VP on the ticket doesn't really have an impact historically, doesn't really matter. But it was his decision to question the racial identity of the Vice President.
Ms. Kamala Harris is Indian and 1/4 Irish. She was Indian and was sworn in as the first Indian senator in.
The damage and devastation that can be inflicted by Islamic radicals has been proven over and over. At the World Trade Center, at an office party in San Bernardino, at the Boston Marathon, at a military recruiting center in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and many, many other locations. Only weeks ago in Orlando, Florida, 49 wonderful Americans were savagely murdered by an Islamic terrorist. This time, the terrorist targeted LGBTQ community. No good, and we're going to stop it. As your president, I will do everything in my power to protect our LGBTQ citizens from the violence and oppression of a hateful foreign ideology. Believe me.
Donald Trump called for new policies to attack radical terrorism, citing the deadly nightclub shootings in Orlando, Florida, and saying that he would do everything in my power to protect LGBTQ citizens from hateful ideology. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And hit that notification bell so you never miss an update.